my laptop. But anyway, it's just funny that we decided to do a thing on irony, and the irony is that, there's so much shit going on that's preventing us from doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like the sign from the literary device gods. It's like, do not talk about this. They shouldn't know. The irony. The ultimate irony is no one understands irony.
The ultimate, yeah, pretty much. Hi gang, welcome to Murder of Prose. We're doing irony this week. The irony in this situation is that we're doing an episode and neither one of us is getting to the fucking subject. Okay. So, irony. And now you've frozen. Is your computer shutting down again? Your computer shut down again. This motherfucker. Okay, so whether or not irony works as a literary device depends on how much the reader knows and, for God's sake, how much they understand. And that happens a lot with some readers, is that they'll read something and go, "Will you, fuck's sake?" Okay, irony. What do you know about irony?
I know nothing.
I think it would be ironic if we did a conversation about irony in which one of the authors doesn't know fucking anything.
Wouldn't it?
So irony, it's basic, it's the definition that I found. It's a literary device in which contradictory statements or situations reveal a reality that is different from what appears to be true. And if anyone didn't get that, it basically means that what you think is happening is not what's happening. That's the irony.
So wait, you're lying to me?
Yeah.
Lie?
Well, what's great about irony is that to really effectively sell it or to really effectively do it, you almost have to employ a couple of different other literary devices.
Yeah.
Like foreshadowing and red herrings. Those are the two main ones that I noticed. Like, it works best when done in tandem with foreshadowing and literary devices. Or not literary. Jesus. Shadows and red herrings. Jesus. Shut up. I've been working a lot. So basically it's the twist. It's
the M. Night Shyamalan device.
Yeah, which he does very poorly.
Yeah.
Except for, something though, in The Village, that movie The Village, that was a good movie. That was a good film.
I think we're going to be in the minority on that one. A lot of other people hated that film.
Yeah, that's because they didn't understand what was going on, which makes sense, because to not understand what's going on, you have to have no sense of irony whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that's par for the course. There's this, and I heard this recently, I can't really remember where. There's this saying that Americans have an irony deficiency. And I was like, that's not true. And then I was looking up irony, and in this quest to really be able to break down irony for an audience of 20
or 3
or 20 or 3, that it's actually true. Americans do have an irony. We have a great sense of sarcasm, which is verbal irony, but as far as overall big picture irony, no, it's really not there.
No. And I would say that's also I would say that's a more recent development within the last 25 years that our irony deficiency has started to.
Yeah, I would say that's probably correct.
And
well,
and I have an author who we can put the blame on for the irony deficiency.
who?
David fucking Foster Wallace.
David fucking Foster Wallace. I've never actually read David Foster Wallace. Not that anyone has any reason to know this, but my literature tastes tend to pre-1950.
Yeah, I know. Miss.
You know, they don't.
Miss, I want to go to a Charles Dickens fair.
Look, okay, if you'd been there, you would know how great it was. And speaking of Charles Dickens, very few, he was really, really good with the irony. But also he was British, so for those people, existence is ironic.
It doesn't count because he's not American. Murr.
No, but in looking for examples of irony, trying to get all my shit together to find examples of irony, I was going through and I rewatched and sort of re-skimmed Nicholas Nickleby. Did you ever read Nicholas Nickleby?
No.
Okay. So, as with most things Dickens, it revolves around somebody who's very poor interacting with somebody who's very rich. And one of the things that you find out in Nicholas Nickleby is that the poorest character, the poorest boy, the one who's the most taken advantage of and abused, is actually the son of the extremely wealthy anti-hero, or the antagonist, which is a twist of irony. It's a twist that Dickens uses frequently, where it's this person that you're taking advantage of, this person that you're allowing all of this abusive shit to happen to, is actually the person who's most closely connected to you.
Yeah.
Very Dickens. Very nice. You should watch Nicholas Nickleby. I feel like you might enjoy it.
Is it available?
It's on. I found my copy on YouTube. That's the one that I liked. That's the one with James Dunham, James Darcy and Charles Dance. Charlie Hunnam and Christopher Plummer did another one that's available on Amazon.
No, thank you.
I'm not plugging them. No. I like this one with James Darcy and Charles Dance because they explored the story a little bit more. They broke the story up into two parts, so you got to explore a little bit more. Where the one with Charlie Hunnam and Christopher Plummer, a lot of shit got left out because it was a proper film. It's an hour or something, I think. But I liked the other one because it told more of the story, and you developed a little more affection for the characters. Jamie Bell played Smike, the poor boy, or the poor son in the Charlie Hunnam version. Why are you smirking? You're a dick. When we went into this, just so the audience knows, when we went into this, he was like, why don't you treat irony like you're the teacher and I'm the student? And this is exactly how a student would behave, isn't it? This is exactly how you were as a student. You were, look at me, I already fucking know. Myrtle got her tit ripped off in Great Gatsby.
No one else knew that.
And I've also written down a bunch of examples of irony if you'd like to go through those while there is some time and quiet.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's try to get as much out.
As much as we can. Okay.
Speed
so
it.
the most obvious one is Oedipus. That's the one that a lot of people end up going back to. Oedipus, as king, is looking for the murderer of the last king, and he doesn't know he's the murderer of the last king.
Mm-hmm.
Who was king before him, before he fucks his mom. So that's irony.
Is that where that complex gets its name?
It's like it's
I know.
The king, his father who he murders is somebody with an L. I forget what his name is. It's not Leonidas because that's Sparta. But that's irony that everybody always goes back to. Cask of Amontillado.
Oh.
Okay, so the character who is bricked up in the wall, is called Fortunato.
Yeah.
Fortunato means, for those who can't figure it out, Fortunato means fortunate, or good luck, or good fortune. And then he dies by being bricked up in a wall by somebody he irritated because he's annoying. The Book of Eli. The villain is, okay, so the Book of, for those who, I don't know, did you ever see the Book of Eli?
With Denzel Washington?
Yes.
With Gary Oldman?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay, so...
The fact that I know who was in it and also the villain, yes, I saw it.
Gary Oldman is the villain, and he's trying to take a Bible from Denzel Washington. Hence the book. Okay, the book is the Bible, and he's trying to take the Bible from Denzel Washington because he's trying to
use it for power.
Use it to create a sense of order that he can control, and we can control it if we use this book. The ironic twist of that story is that the Bible was written in Braille, and he couldn't read it.
Yeah, and Eli's blind the entire time.
And Eli's blind the entire time, and you don't know. Spoiler alert. Fallout 4. At this point, pretty much everybody has played Fallout 4.
I've never beaten Fallout 4.
But I'm pretty sure you've played it. Well, I'm pretty sure you've played it enough to know what I'm gonna talk about. Okay, so the playable character is like the main nemesis is this thing called the Institute.
Oh wait, no, I have beaten it. Never mind, I did beat. Yeah.
Okay, so he has to fight all these machines from the Institute while he's trying to find his son.
Yes.
And when he gets to the Institute, he finds out that his son is actually the person creating the machines that he's been fighting.
Yes.
His son is the villain. He's looking for his son, and his son is the villain. That's an ironic twist.
Well, it's also the fact that like you don't know how much time has passed since your son being taken.
It says it's been like 70-something years.
From his son being taken to when you thought out.
Yeah.
Is it mentioned?
I'm pretty sure it said like it's like 70, 75 years, something like that.
Okay, because like there was like a sequence.
Don't tell you. I don't think you know how long you've been in stasis when you start Fallout 4. But when they from when they take the child to when you finally get to him, he's an old man. Like it's been like 75 years or something like that.
I know, but like I felt like there was like a false because like when you see it, like it makes it seem like your son could maybe only be like 10, like only that much time has passed.
Well, because he creates a synth, or he creates creates a synth that is basically him. Yeah. With his face, but and the synth is supposed to be him as a 10-year-old, but in reality he's like 70 something, like 80 maybe. Yeah. But that's a twist of irony. Dorian Gray. Okay, so the portrait of Dorian Gray. We all know the story about the portrait of Dorian Gray, right? Yeah. Okay. For as much as Dorian Gray sins, that's like the damage that his portrait takes. That's how his picture decays. Until the picture is basically just him as a skeleton because it's his soul trapped inside the picture. And in the book, he goes back and he looks at the picture, and he finds the state that his soul is in. So he starts trying to do good to restore his soul. But because his motivation is purely selfish, all it does is degenerate that picture even more. That's irony that most people will feel, but very few people will understand. And I also went for the telltale heart.
Okay.
Which is a twist of irony. Okay, so the murderer, the man murders the old man, and he hides him in the floorboards.
Yeah.
And then he reveals the hiding place of the body because he's going crazy.
Yeah.
Irony. He's the one who tells police what he did. And the police are just sitting there and they have no idea what happened. So if he had just kept control of his shit, that whole story would have been different. Oh God. I don't even want to talk about it now. I don't want to do it.
So anyway, we'll just give you a very short, this will probably be our shortest video. There are 3 types of irony: situational, dramatic, and verbal.
Verbal is sarcastic.
Yes.
You're going to hear a lot of verbal irony on this podcast.
Yes.
A lot.
So you could learn through experiencing what we're doing.
You could learn about irony by watching this podcast, because we're gonna set up a topic to discuss per episode, and we're gonna talk about everything else except that thing.
Yeah. Which is the irony of talking about irony.
Yeah, literally. God, okay. We're gonna break it down, and then we're gonna actually talk about something that's interesting. I swear to God. Dramatic irony is knowing as a reader what is about to happen, or what is really happening, and watching the behavior of the characters who don't know anything about what's going to happen, and seeing how their behavior and how the end result are in contrast with one another. Like, and the play, okay, so Shakespeare's Macbeth. Duncan thinks Macbeth is his friend. And we all know that Macbeth is going to kill Duncan because he wants to be king. That's dramatic irony in a nutshell. You know what's going to happen, and then you have to watch this stupid person be stupid.
For the entirety of the play?
For the entire, and that, up until they die, in this case. Which is really like only a couple of scenes. So it's not that bad.
Verbal irony.
Hold on. Dramatic irony works best when building I wrote notes on this, so that's what I'm reading. Dramatic irony works best when building suspense or setting up a thriller. Does it? It can be used in almost any context, but it seems to work best in thrillers or in comedy because of the starkness of the contrast, also tragedy. I'm literally reading my notes, so if this doesn't make any sense, it's because I took notes.
You also can't read them.
I can read my writing usually. Okay, so in the case of Romeo and Juliet, we have lovers from 2 houses at war killed themselves because Romeo thought Juliet was dead, and then Juliet woke up to find Romeo actually dead. I think the dramatic irony is the whole thing and how it's supposed to be interesting, but it really isn't. And in the case of, I also did Julius Caesar.
Let's just tear apart Shakespeare while we're at it.
I fucking hate Romeo and Juliet. I hate it so goddamn much. I can't tell you. I wrote, when I was first applying to colleges, I applied to I applied to Drexel University for a screenwriting major, and it was either the class or like a program, but the professor who was in charge, he wanted us all to write him a little like paper about a film that we had seen and what it meant to us in terms of something. I can't remember how it affected us emotionally. And I did a whole paper on Romeo and Juliet. And I said to him, or I said in the paper, like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It's like Titanic, where these two people who have just met each other decide that they're completely in love and they're going to spend the rest of their short fucking lives together. And you don't know anything about this person. You don't. You don't know if this person is a raging alcoholic and hiding it behind a specific social facade. You don't know if he's a serial killer. You don't know if she's a psychopath. Like, you don't know anything. What are you talking about, love at first sight? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Love at first sight.
There's infatuation at first sight.
Well, there's lust and wanting to fuck the shit out of somebody, sure. But that's not love. Like, love is something that sustains over time. That's what makes it love. Lust is like, I'm gonna fuck you until I find something else that I want to fuck even more. That's what we're talking about here. Until you die or until I find somebody else. And I put that in my paper, and he accepted me based on the fact that I hated Romeo and Juliet. Like, he just wanted to like have a conversation with somebody who is so strongly anti-romantic tragedy. That was why he took me. He told me straight up, that's why I'm taking you into this class. I never got to go, but it would have been fun to have a conversation with him. The other bit of irony that I wrote down was Julius Caesar. I don't know if you ever read or watched or saw Julius Caesar. No?
No.
Okay, so there's this bit, and they talk about it in the play where, Caesar comes back into Rome and he's triumphant, right? And he's up in front of the Senate, and they're going back and forth about whether they're going to make him the dictator of Rome. And they're trying to give him the crown. And he pushes the crown away, and the people cheer. And they offer it to him again, and he pushes it away, and the people cheer. Because, like, the emotion that he's going through is he's saying, no, I don't want to be emperor. No, I don't want to be dictator. And that's why the people love him. But he does want to become dictator. He does want to become the emperor. But in order to do that, he has to make the people love him. Yeah. So the dramatic irony is that we know Caesar became the first dictator of Rome. But to do that, he had to pretend like he didn't. And they say in the play that he became very frustrated and annoyed because the people who don't want a dictator are applauding him refusing to become dictator. And he can't do it unless they want him to be that. And they don't want him to be that, and that's why they love him.
Yeah. So
that's the irony there. The other bit of irony is that his wife told him, beware the Ides of March, and he was like, you're crazy, shut up, and then he died. The whole thing about that dramatic irony is that, like, you have to know that Caesar's gonna die.
Well, you have to know the history of Caesar, yeah.
Like, you have to know. If you don't know, then you're like, why is everybody making a big deal about Julius Caesar and the Ides of March? I don't get it. And it's like, no, that's the story. That's what happened. Like, it's the whole bit depends on whether or not the audience actually knows what's going to happen.
That'd be like someone doing a play going a little bit more modern to someone who dies. That'd be like doing a play of either Lincoln or Kennedy, and then like someone not knowing the history of either of those, and like be like, hold the fuck up. That guy
died?
He died? Violently?
Who would kill Lincoln? Lots of people. That's why he died. Somebody got the shot off. Okay. So moving on from that, because now we've covered dramatic irony. Situational irony. This is the twist. We say situational irony and then we don't say anything. It's the twist. But that's what situational irony is. It's the twist. It's a setup for okay, so there's an event. There's a setup for an event, and there's a way that you think you could have just stayed down and I was going to lecture the children. But you there's the setup. There's the setup for the event. And then unless you're going to make rude gestures with your hands, what are you doing? And then there's the way that the event is going to end. There's how you think the event is going to end. And then there's how the event ends. Stroke those cats. That's what makes it situational irony, is that the opposite of what you think is about to happen happens. And what's the only really interesting thing about situational irony is that this is where you employ red herrings and foreshadowing, because that's what makes it work, is that you don't anticipate it. So the foreshadowing tells you what's going to happen, and then the red herring makes you think something else is going to happen. And that's what makes that end result so poignant. Otherwise, you're just asking yourself why the fuck you even bothered. I'm still going off my notes. Oh, okay. So the difference between situational irony and dramatic irony is that dramatic irony depends on you knowing how the story is supposed to end. And situational irony, like you ain't gotta know shit. You just have to follow the story. And now we get to verbal irony. JD, this is your strong point because we're gonna talk about sarcasm. Please come back to the screen. George R.R. Martin.
Hi.
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 Actually, his voice is a lot higher pitched. Like
I know. It's like, I can't do him though.
It's like hi.
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 So I actually write on a thing of, it's just stone, and I chisel. That's why the book I'm currently writing is taking so long. I can't read my chiseling.
I know that you don't know what his voice sounds like, but I've heard him in interviews, and that's actually eerily similar.
That's terrifying.
Sarcasm. Tell the people about sarcasm. I'm sure they want to know. They've never heard it before, ever.
I'm a stranger to sarcasm. I've never used it in my life. I'm a very straightforward person. I don't keep anything from my viewers or readers. I let everyone know everything from the get-go. How dare you say I know anything about sarcasm?
Like this. JD, tell the people about sarcasm, because it's what you're most fluent in.
I just told you.
Don't ever come at me with how dare you, because I'm going to show you exactly how I dare by repeating the same fucking action. It's like when your cat knocks something off a table and you go, how dare you? And the cat's like this, and then they knock something else off. It's that simple.
Fuck you!
We're going to stop recording here so that I can pee and you can get more coffee. Or gin or whiskey or whatever it is.
I mean, I've had coffee. That's what I went to go pee. But I haven't been drinking coffee since we started recording.
Well, your cup sounds empty, so you should fill it.
I will. I might go eat something too.
Okay. We'll take a break here, and then we'll come back in, and it'll be seamless.
It'll just be a jump, and I'll be shirtless. It was supposed to be a guttural expression. It wasn't.
Well, that, and you're like, again, like you said, your voice hadn't developed yet.
No, and like I mentioned, like earlier off camera, until then I'd never written prose. Right. I was writing song lyrics. I was writing music, and I hadn't quite shifted into that literary mindset. I was still working.
Which actually makes sense, because having read Division Street the way it was, like there were lots of parts, as I told you at the time,
it was very lyrical.
Lyrical.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure now you would alter that. If not the lyrical tone, you would at least change the way you say the sentence.
Yeah, like there's one, it's like the opening sentence of chapter 2. Let me pull it up real quick. You can cut out the time it takes.
I probably won't, because what I'll tell people in the time that it takes for you to find it is that you not that it's a bad idea to publish your first novel, but don't publish your first novel.
Or your second one, for that matter.
No, don't like write a couple of novels, develop yourself, because everybody thinks that, oh, the debut novel is supposed to be the first novel. No, idiot. It's the one that you've gotten the most practice on, that you're ready to reveal to the public. Write a couple of novels first and then publish. You have to hone your skill. That's a trap that a lot of writers fall into, is that they think, well, now I've done a novel, so I need to publish. Like, no, you don't need to publish. What you need to do is fix it.
See, and that's what I wish someone would have told me back then. Is like, yeah, you wrote a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, you've written your first novel. Congratulations. Now write the next one.
I've written 5 novels that were unpublished. 5.
Yeah.
5 that were unpublished. Don't publish your first novel. It's shit.
Okay, so the first sentence of chapter 2 originally was getting off easy with a police officer was a piece of cake. I went back, and now the new one is, and it's just the last. I changed the last 3 words. It's getting off easy. The police officer was simple enough. I got rid of the cliche, the piece of cake, because let's be honest, no one likes a cliche phrase.
No, well, you didn't need it.
Yeah, it definitely was not needed, and it doesn't. There were a lot of, because I think I'm on chapter 7 in terms of this rewrite.
Because the phrase "getting off easy" is already one cliche.
Yeah, getting off easy with the police officer was simple enough. Like, a piece of cake, having 2 cliches in a sentence was just overkill.
Yeah. Getting off easy was easy. Getting off easy was easy.
Yeah, getting easy. Yeah. So like that's more what I'm doing. I'm not changing how it was written. I'm just changing little flourishes. Kind of just pretty much just beating out the dents that were there when I released it and making it look a little better. And then, of course, as I told you before, there are also sections that I had someone, I gave them a copy of Division Street, and they basically marked it all up, and like, this can be deleted, this doesn't have to be in there, da 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 da. And for some of that, I cut out and put in the back of the book, because some of it is still essential. It's just, it was so long-winded that you lost momentum. So like, you don't have to read the back, the end notes to get the story in its completion. But
Right.
if you want to know a little more, go ahead and read it if you want. But yeah,
It's good on the person who did that for you.
yeah. But yeah, no. Because what you were talking about is, Divinity, like you said, it's not a bad story. It's just the writing wasn't there.
Yeah. No, you have because that was your very first one. Like you had to develop.
Yeah.
And Arcadia is a great fucking story. False Cathedrals, from what little I have seen, is going to be a great fucking story. It is, because the story is there. It was, you had to hone your technique. It was like what the first song you ever wrote. Were the lyrics really good?
No.
No, they weren't. No, but that's the point. Like, no, they weren't. It was fucking terrible. When I first published How to Cure a Vampire Bite Without Losing Your Mind, it was it was terrible. It was bad. Because I'd written a couple of novels up to that point, but I had gotten distracted by this advice that I'd gotten from a professional writer, that I should do this certain way, and when I published it, it didn't work. It didn't work. I had to go back to the drawing board and find something that worked. And for you, it's your voice. For me, it was how I was telling the story, which ended up being how I had always been telling the story.
Well, the one thing I did tell you, though, was to slow down.
Well, yeah. But see, again, that came from somebody oh God, was it? They were talking about Ernest Hemingway. And what Ernest Hemingway, just write what is essential. And so I was trying to do that because I didn't know any better. I was trying to do that. I was trying to write just what I needed to write, and it didn't work. He was wrong. He was wrong. It worked, maybe for his stories it worked, but for mine it didn't. It's like a sculpture. It's like a sculpture telling you, if you do oil paints, that you need to add more. You need to be harder on the canvas. You need to add more.
Mm-hmm.
Go deeper. And with oils, it's not necessarily you're talking two different artists.
Yeah.
Two different mediums, two different ways of telling a story, two different ways of painting a picture. It doesn't work. You have to find that's what's so important about the exercise that we did last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you find what works.
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
You have to. If you're gonna do it well, you have to find the thing that works. And that's not necessarily gonna be, in my case, it wasn't the Ernest Hemingway approach where you only give people the necessary details and it's short and clipped and minimalist. No, we have to, because I'm in a totally different universe. I'm not sitting inside of Ernest Hemingway's universe where I can just do it in short little bits. I have to tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
So you have to do what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But play around with both. Play around with all of them. Find the thing that works for you, because that's what makes your voice.
Yeah.
And you had to find your voice.
And it took me till Arcadia to finally find it. And going with the exercise we talked about last episode, it took me to finding an author whose approach fit very similarly to what I wanted to execute with Arcadia.
Who did you go with in the end?
You talking about the author?
Yeah.
Pynchon.
Okay.
I
don't think I've actually read any Pynchon.
Mine is obviously a less. He is very he will go on tangents that seem like they won't end, and then he'll go on another tangent before he even gets back to the meat of the story.
Right.
And you think, why the fuck did I just read those parts? But they do come up later. So like, while they may not seem essential while you're reading them, and it may not even become essential till like 300 pages later. But so he does that so that those little bits that you read that annoyed you, they stick there in the back of your brain. By the time you get to the point 300 pages later, you go, oh, okay, you sneaky little prick.
See, that's what Victor Hugo does in Les Mis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, where, like, he makes you go through 60 fucking pages about the Battle of Waterloo, but if you didn't go through all those pages about the Battle of Waterloo, if you didn't know that all of those men were dying there, they were just laying there and dying because medics weren't what they are today, then you wouldn't understand why Pontmercy owes Thénardier his life.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't understand why Marius is indebted to this slimy creep of a man.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Pynchon didn't pull a little bit from Hugo.
I wouldn't doubt it, to be honest.
Given if anyone has read Les Mis, that's definitely something they'll have come across. Is that technique where it's like, it doesn't make sense now, but give it a fucking minute and give me 60 pages and it'll make sense.
Yeah, just be patient.
But at the end, the reader still feels like you're a prick.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason to drag me through the Battle of Waterloo. I'm still bitter about that. He's long since dead, but I'm still bitter. Drag me through the Battle of fucking Waterloo. Are you kidding me, man? I don't know how we're going to cut this, but that's just how you've evolved as an author.
I wouldn't even say that the formatting really is the author aspect. It's just how I've...
And that's what you did for me for...
How to Cure.
Cure.
Although my favorite chapter from that one of yours is because...
Your favorite chapter, you said?
Only, like, when it came to formatting it. Was... What chapter was that? Not even there. I think it was 30?
The northernmost tip of Alaska is, without question, one of the coldest and most desolate places on Earth. That was your favorite?
Those types of things were my favorite because it was out of the norm. It wasn't just putting words on the page. I had to essentially make it look like, for instance, the step. Make it look like the steps that the person was actually taking. Like you're essentially reading the character's trajectory of walking.
Well, that was the whole point of that bit, was to show you like where she's shuffle, step, shuffle, step, collapse.
That was my favorite thing to format. Wasn't my favorite thing to read. That makes it sound like I didn't enjoy reading it, but that's not what I mean. I just mean that it was my favorite thing because it wasn't just, all right, find the font, indent, move on. It was, oh, I gotta make it look like a certain way.
Right.
Cream paper next time.
Now I'm gonna read this little bit here. Not that it's any good. No, it's from chapter 22. The northernmost tip, if you want to follow along.
Well, I meant like, I was asking if I should read from mine as well.
Oh, maybe. The northernmost tip of Alaska is, without question, one of the coldest and most desolate places on Earth. It is a home to a small community of people who depend on one another to survive the harsh elements of the frozen north. It had been Marx's outpost for the last few centuries. Barring the occasional trip home to report to Farrell, she never left it if she could help it. If it was too ideal a scouting post to leave. From here, she could see into both Canada and Russia, and just past the northern border of China. It could be a tedious existence when everyone reacted logically and with forethought, but that tedium was never something to last. Humans could always be relied upon to descend into chaos. The last scout posted here hadn't lasted long. A combination of cold and loneliness had driven him mad, and he had descended on the poor inhabitants of Eurasia, giving rise to some of the oldest legends circulating the rural, untouched populations. Marx had been stationed in Ukuyagvik shortly afterward. At first it had wrinkled. Her work in the jungles of South America had been most enjoyable. Things had just been getting interesting. The people from Europe were just starting to show an interest. Rumors were floating around that sailors had made berth on the coast of what was now New England. And then Farrell had pulled her abruptly. He had assured her it had nothing to do with her history in South America. He liked how the natives behaved, and he had been especially impressed with their sense of ferocity. Reassignment was still a disappointment. This place had proven to be nice, though, because she was only a scout. There was no need for her to sow discord. All she had to do was watch. The native population were much better here. In any case, self-reliant, unbelievably clever, and wise enough to know to keep her at a distance. Marx was beginning to develop something like fondness for them. She assumed it was fondness. She understood the word to mean sorry to leave, and she would be very sorry indeed to leave this place and these people. So when she stepped out onto the front porch of her small cabin on an unusually warm morning and saw the lanky figure of Sebastian Degas striding toward her, Marx groaned and tried to wave him away. "No!" she shouted. "No! Shoo! Shoo! Shoo, you shit! Go away!" Degas spread his arms in a helpless gesture. "But baby," he called, grinning from ear to ear, "I need you." That's all I'm going to read.
Okay. All right.
That's it. That's all there is to it. That's the best bit of writing I could find.
Or you just flipped to chapter...
I opened to chapter
22
and I was like, well, this will do.
All right. My turn, I take it.
Your turn.
All right. Mine comes from chapter 11 of the book Arcadia. No, I'm going to read chapter 11 of Division Street just to torture you more.
Should I read along too?
It'll be Arcadia.
Hold on.
You want the page number?
It's chapter 11. I want to read along too. What
184. 184.
Okay. All right.
Everything was back to how it used to be for Tom Dolan. The savage nightmare which had consumed his fragile, subconscious thoughts, refusing to let him go, despite his relentless protest, had withered away, retiring to the darker recesses of his mind. Pleasant forest greens and vibrant baby blues replaced the barren fields and gray skies which seemed to be commonplace in the land of rubble and death. A family of birds could be seen flying high among the clouds, migrating south for the winter months to come, flying together as one infrangible unit, soaring in perfect lines. At ground level, miles of unkempt road stretched out in front of him, waiting to be explored for the nth time of its immortal existence. He found himself driving alone in his wife's car, their faithful dark blue 2017 Ford Escape. A comfortable vehicle, well constructed, requiring minimal upkeep, an oil change here and there, easy to handle, with decent enough gas mileage to keep an experienced driver from complaining. Henry Ford would have been proud if he could manage to look past the modern manufacturing process, an automated system of faceless machinery working tirelessly, each function finely tuned in back reference to such ungodly precision. The art of its once miraculous construction having been pared down to a mathematical sequence which would continue on forever, long after the species which had originally programmed its nuanced function had faded from the face of reality. The machine's immaculate creations, which would forever sit in silence, awaiting approval, going unseen by their creators, their faithful robotic diligence to the task becoming nothing more than a waste of ones and zeros. Tom Dolan lived in a world of binary. As he continued his lonesome drive, his final destination unknown, only the weightless freedom of the act keeping him from floating adrift into a network of aimless daydreams, Tom gathered in the wealth of information which had always been, the untouched beauty of the California fields, which lie just off the side of the interstate, where untamed horses would chase one another in playful competition while a family of cows watched with an unimpressed stare. From there, his eyes focused on the invisible force of the wind blowing the weeds back and forth, creating a silent, well-choreographed dance for any solemn passerby to enjoy. Ahead of him, a sea of billboards floated past him as he continued to sail down an ocean of asphalt. An endless wave of advertisement crashing down on him left and right, telling him the number of miles before he could enjoy the finger-licking good contents of KFC's famous big box meal, or the juicy selection of Arby's. The world was his oyster for unhealthy dietary consumption. Not in the mood for anything, finding himself not hungry, he chose to ignore them as best he could. Hours passed with no sign of progress. Not a town had found its way to him, nor an off-ramp to leave the main road so he could find his bearings. Looking around, finding the road unoccupied by any other signs of human life, without pulling over to the side of the road, Tom lulled his vehicle to a complete stop. Stepping out of his car, the engine still running, the faint droning of KCUF's talk radio pouring from the vehicle's speakers, Tom scanned the landscape in a slow, panoramic swoop. Not another vehicle be seen coming in either direction, only the sea of birds flying farther away from him, a nonsensical series of Morse code becoming obscured by the pale horizon which would soon swallow them whole, while the beginnings of a dust devil arose from the still sleeping earth. The solitude of being the only human along the interstate was hauntingly calming to him, having spent what felt like weeks lost in a horrific dreamscape, where the world he knew was nothing more than another series of ones and zeros, haphazardly carrying him along while his real body slept behind a plate of glass. A bout of clarity striking him suddenly, Tom began to question the credibility of his memory, unable to recall how he managed to find himself traveling down the interstate, everything before this moment being a non-existent blur. He felt his heart begin to race, the unpleasant feeling of not knowing causing a panic attack. Hoping to quell his fears, Tom searched for something tangible to focus on. His eager eyes found a billboard facing the opposite direction he was traversing. He took in every astute detail. The artwork harked back to the optimistic simplicity of the 1950s. A blonde female with green eyes and rosy cheeks, sharing her company with a young male with brown hair and a perfect smile. The two of them laughing at nothing, an inside joke which remained unknown to its audience. A dialogue bubble floating above the man's head, only giving us the half-baked punchline. The world ended on January 25th, 1995. Everything you know has been a lie. Welcome to Arcadia, your new home.
Well, yours sounds much better.
You were the far more competent reader, though.
Well, yeah, but I was also drilled as a child in that kind of thing.
I could have kept going, but I try to do things in one breath, and I get exhausted.
Well, your single breath is quite impressive, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Having read those little bits from our own pieces of work, I think that's where we're going to leave off this particular brand or episode of this version of this brand of shit show.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Now that I'm out of breath.
All right. See you later, kids.
Toodles.